Hello and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Jill Bodensteiner, Director of Athletics at St. Joseph's University. As leaders, it's really important that we're clear regarding our goals and our vision and how those integrate into the greater university goals. We also need to collectively create a strategy and a culture that are going to help us reach our goals. This is an evolving exercise that requires an openness to continuous improvement. That's why I follow the One Question Leadership Podcast, because I love learning as much as I possibly can from my colleagues. That helps me be the best that I can be. So my message for the day, keep learning, keep leading.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Jim Gash. Jim is the President and Chief Executive Officer at Pepperdine University. Greetings, Jim. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Ty. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. So your background, you were previously the Associate Dean for Strategic Planning and External Relations at the Pepperdine Caruso School of Law. Of course, you have a law background, spent 6 years in law, and then as a professor and the Associate Dean, 20 years in academia. And prior to it all, you played quarterback at Abilene Christian University. So I definitely want to have you on here to talk a little bit about leadership.
Well, thank you. I have had the privilege of spending quite a bit of time here at Pepperdine now and trying to hone my leadership skills, which started, of course, in athletics.
All right. And that's an ever-evolving process, right? Honing leadership skills. You know that like I do, especially being a student athlete. So you're a former student athlete, now president of a university. Those are two wide, different chapters in different parts of a book, right? And the adventure in between those two chapters contains a wealth of experience and exposure to a variety of leadership styles. Talk to us a little bit about how your leadership philosophy has evolved during your, I guess it's 26 years now of professional life.
Yeah, well, it adapts to the situation that you're in. And so right now, as the chief executive of Pepperdine, I have the entire leadership structure of the university reporting to me. And so that calls for a different type of approach than might a smaller one when I was the dean of students, for example, or associate dean for strategic planning at the law school. And so right now, I would say, here's how I would describe my leadership philosophy. It is relational first. You've got to engage deeply with those around you on a personal level. You have to develop relationships with the team that you work with. And we know that from sports as well. We know that, a successful quarterback or successful point guard or successful shortstop has got to have the kind of trust that develops out of a relationship with the teammates. So relational first, and then it's collaborative. Collaborative meaning we get the people in the room who have the information necessary, what we're looking for in order to make a decision. And leadership is about making decisions. So you've got to be relational and then collaborative. So you have a room full of people who are expert or at least have the knowledge necessary to contribute to the conversation. So you have this deep and no holds barred conversation. And then it goes into deliberative. Okay, so we collaborate and then we deliberate. And I go around there, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Make the other argument. You think we should do X. This other person thinks we should do Y. You who think we should do X, tell me why we should do Y. Let's think about this, put on different hats and evaluate this from every angle, which of course means you have to have a diverse leadership team who comes to the table with a variety of different backgrounds, experiences, and suppositions. And then finally, relational, collaborative, deliberative, and decisive. You've got to be decisive. Sometimes being decisive means it's not time to make a decision. We don't have the full data points we need, and we don't have to make the decision now. But we've decided not to decide. Most of the time, we have, particularly in a pandemic, we have an absence of the complete picture. And when you have an absence of the complete picture, then you have to use the available evidence that you have and make your best decision. It's like when I was playing quarterback. You don't know whether they're going to be in cover two, they're going to be in man-to-man, you're going to have a corner blitz, you're going to have some sort of linebacker stunt. You don't know what you're going to have. You have to make decisions with the information you have. So you call the play in the huddle that you think is going to be best. But then when you get to the line, you've got to be able to audible. Now, audible takes into account the new data you receive on that particular moment. And so over the years, being someone who had the opportunity to lead, I was the point guard on my high school basketball team. I was the pitcher on my elementary school t-ball team. And understand, the t-ball team, you don't actually throw the ball, but you're the first person there. For when the little kid dribbles it up the middle, you're right there. So I was like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Be quarterback, later became shortstop. I want to be in the middle of the action with people, but you got to get people around you who can be successful as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about relationships, you're talking about collaborative, you talk about deliberative, you talk about making a decision. I do wonder, you come to a position, you're leading a university, right? Like you said, it's a big difference from being dean of students, from being associate dean of strategic planning. Now you're making almost the final decision. It's almost a similarity. The people feeding you information, the deliberation comes from people who are in charge of their own area of influence, right? You think about on a college campus, the areas of influence are huge, right? So I wonder about, I don't know about you, but when I played, I wasn't necessarily in the coach's office, coach's rooms when they were talking. But when I got to work with the Football Coaches Association later, I realized how much back and forth happens when they talk about recruiting or how we're going to strategize this game. I wonder about that level as a president and building consensus when everybody has to try to fight for what they think is most important for their area of influence.
Absolutely critical. I've got in this role, I've got 8 direct reports. So there's 8 individuals that report directly to me. They're over each of the major areas of the university, over academics, over our finances, over our operations, over the investments of the university, over the strategic planning. And then there's another group, a larger group that's called the steering team, that's got 20. And so those are the people who, when we have our relational, collaborative, deliberative, decisive discussions, we've got 20 in the room on the big pictures, but then the room gets smaller when we're focusing on a particular area, because I need people in that room who have the expertise. More importantly, who have the accountability, because ultimately I can't know everything and I can't be the one who's accountable to everyone, because the president's job is quite broad. But you need to have a group of people who are experts in their area, who are accountable to you and accountable to the community. And it's critically important that the relationships are deep and wide and broad. It's not just, I see you at work. It's like, are you in my home for dinner? Do I know your spouse, and does your spouse know my spouse? Do your kids know my kids? This is how you build trust, is it through relationships, and trust is critical to the success of any team.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thinking back to how you answered the first question, and you mentioned in the second question, the relationships, the collaborative, deliberative, and the decisive. In terms of the evolving of a leadership philosophy, it sounds like you arrived at that at some point in your career. And I wonder how long before being the president you arrived at, or did it just get strengthened when you were president?
I would say that I'm still arriving. It's always an evolving process. I have read quite a few books on leadership. In fact, our steering team is reading together right now Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which is an excellent book that we're kind of walking through and bouncing off of each other. And over the course of my life, I've been privileged to have some incredible mentors. And I would say the most important advice I can give to anybody who aspires to be a leader is to be around effective leaders, not people who necessarily have positional authority. Yes, I am the boss, or I am the president, or I am the whatever. It's people who lead from that authority in ways that others follow. And so I've had just some incredible mentors. The judge that I worked with, Edith Jones, after I graduated from law school, is still a mentor. The dean of the law school when I was there, Ron Phillips, is still a mentor. Several of my bosses along the way in private practice and in education continue to be mentors and help me hone leadership skills such that I'm always learning. And as soon as you think that you don't have anything more to learn, then you should quit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
right.
It's time. You look at Tom Brady. Why is he so successful? At 43 years old, he's in the Super Bowl. Why is that? Because he does not ever stop learning and preparing and training to lead. And you just see the success, not just him, but you look at the world leaders over the years who have been successful, people who are constant students and learning and making themselves better. That's what I aspire to be when I'm at my best, but it is evolving.
What I've learned, and the phrase I use, is that in order to be successful, you have to walk with the elephants, right? And the elephants are people who shape the industry, who are effective at what they do, and you learn from being around those people. And it's similar to what you just said about learning from being around other effective leaders and influential people. I like that a lot.
I love that. I've been around some elephants and have benefited tremendously from their guidance.
I'll ask you another question here, and then we'll wrap. This one, I think, is kind of close to heart to me, and I know it's close to heart to you being a former quarterback and playing football, and football being a sport that in the huddle, in the words of Coach Bill Curry, who's a friend of mine, coached for a long time in college, Alabama, coached at Kentucky, coached at Georgia State. There are guys, when you look at the huddle, especially you as quarterback, there are guys in that huddle from the mountains of Appalachia, from the south side of Chicago, the beaches of Southern California, from the heart of Dallas, Texas. It's a very diverse group of people in the huddle in the sport of football. And I know you can relate to that. And you talk about diversity, right, on a team. And it's a term that has many meanings. And when you look at college athletics and college campuses and student life in general, diversity and inclusion has to be executed with intent while also being an ever-evolving process. And I wonder about you in the last year and a half as the CEO at Pepperdine, what are some of your personal thoughts on the ongoing evolution of inclusiveness on campus there at Pepperdine?
Well, thank you for that question. And you're exactly right. When you get into a football huddle, when you get into, a dugout of a baseball team, when you get into, a timeout at a basketball game, and you're looking at your brothers who are in that huddle with you or in that group with you, you don't look at them and say, this person is, of Latino descent. This person is of Asian descent. This person is of African descent. It's like, this is my brother. This is my teammate. This is the person that I need to rely on and trust, regardless of that other stuff. Our identity is a team. We are a team. We're not individuals, but we're a team. We also, we are individuals outside of that, and that's important to understand that people have different backgrounds and experiences. But when you're in the thick of battle, you have to be able to look across at your brothers in the huddle or at your brothers and sisters in the boardroom, which we do now, and say, I'm not looking at you as an identity other than a member of my team. That's what's critically important. You learn that in sports. You look back, most people who have played competitive athletics over their lifetime, someone says, well, did you have friends of African descent, of Latino descent, of Asian descent? It's like, well, yeah. I mean, of course, because we had everybody who was on the team, and the team didn't depend upon somebody's identity. It depended upon their skill, their training, their commitment, and that crosses racial boundaries. That's true in an organization as well. Now, it is very important for an organization to reflect the community around it, and I'm not suggesting anything other than that. But when you're in an organization and you have a team, people aren't first. A member of a particular group or a particular gender, a particular ethnicity, they're a member of the team. And the athletics helps you break down those barriers that society and politics tries to construct to divide us or to get between us. But that's not what people who play sports know, and that's not what their experience, and they're the better for it.
That's true. Talk. What about your experience at Pepperdine over a year and a half and college campuses around the country? If they're not HBCUs, there has always been a struggle on diversity on college campuses for whatever reason. And I think Pepperdine has made some moves recently, but specifically for you, taking on a leadership role at Pepperdine, talk about that process over the last year and a half, where I'll assume, and I think I assume with pretty confident assumption that this is something that has been close to your heart as you move forward in your leadership.
It has. And so my philosophy is we need to get past diversity and inclusion to belonging. And so I've heard it said that diversity is being asked to the dance. Inclusion is being invited to dance at the dance. Belonging is being asked what music we're going to play at the dance, because this is your dance. You're not a guest. You're not a visitor. You are part of this community. You belong. And so our goal is to get to a level of belonging, which of course includes diversity and inclusion, but it's broader than that. It's for people feeling like this is my team. This is my campus. I am loved. I'm supported. I am respected. And so part of that is ensuring that we, again, reflect the community around us. And we take advantage of the various strengths and characteristics and experiences of our team. And so when I first started, one of the very first hires was I hired Sarah Jackson to be a chancellor, which is the kind of lead ambassador fundraiser for the university. She's the first female ever to be the chancellor of Pepperdine. I didn't hire her because she was female. I hired her because she was the best. And she's fantastic. The chair of the board, they said, who do you want to be chair? And I said, I want Deanna to be chair. Well, we'd never had a female chair of the board. I'm not looking to break barriers. I'm looking to get the right leaders in the right place. And it happens to be that Deanna is that. When I hired my chief financial officer, Greg Ramirez rose to the top, and he has been phenomenal. I didn't hire him because he's of Latino descent. I hired him because he was the best. But he brings, and each person brings to the table not just their excellence and their experience. They bring themselves to it, and that enriches the entire conversation. The deliberative process is enhanced when you have voices with different experiences in the room. We're in the process now of hiring Pepperdine's first ever chief diversity officer. And that was something that when I was hired, I said, I'm going to hire a chief diversity officer. This person's going to report directly to me. This person's going to be on the steering team. This person's going to have a place at the table. But I am actually the chief diversity officer. I'm the one who is responsible for ensuring that our community reflects the community around us. But I've got a billion other things to do. I want somebody who's going to be a partner and an equipper and a resource to every aspect of this university to ensure that we're enhancing belonging. I'm not calling the person chief diversity officer, vice president for community belonging, which of course includes diversity, but for everybody to belong. And that's going to be a team effort. And we need somebody who wakes up every day saying, how can we enhance this in every aspect of the university? So that's kind of been the focus for me in this first 18 months. And it feels like we're making some really good progress there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's great progress. And when you thinking about what you said, right, in the team, I acknowledge who you are. I acknowledge your background, acknowledge race and gender. When it's time to get to action, we're just getting to action. We're all people here, and we're here for a reason. Let's go. I acknowledge who you are, where you come from. Now it's time to go. Let's go. Let's do it. So I think it's excellent. I think you'll continue to do great things there at Pepperdine. And I really appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
My pleasure, Ty. Great to be with you, and God bless you and your work.
That was Jim Gash. He's the president and chief executive officer at Pepperdine University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.